Hello, welcome to Levant TV Headlines. Russia's UN Ambassador Vitaly Churkin says the UN Security Council should make sure that the people allegedly responsible for chlorine attacks in Syria are brought to justice. The United Nations has launched an appeal for $500 million in international aid to help tackle a worsening humanitarian crisis in Iraq, triggered by the conflict with Islamic State militants. The United Nations is planning to convene peace talks between Yemen's warring factions in Geneva on June the 14th, a date agreed to by the war-torn country's exiled government but not yet supported by the Houthi militia. Former Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak will face a second and final retrial over the killing of protesters during the 2011 uprising after a High Court judge accepted the public prosecution appeal against an earlier court ruling that dropped the case. And Israeli warplanes have struck multiple targets in the Gaza Strip in response to Palestinian rocket fire, but nobody was injured, according to Palestinian security sources. And now let's have a look at the top headlines in today's newspapers in the Middle East. Starting from Beirut, the Daily Star leads reporting that Hezbollah says its fighters made fresh advances against Syria-based jihadis in the mountains southwest of the Lebanese border town of Arsal. The paper also reports that Internal Security Forces Chief Major General Ibrahim Basbous has urged police officers a day before his term expires to remain neutral as Lebanon is gripped by political unrest over key security appointments and how to deal with Syria-based jihadis on the northeastern border. From the UAE, the Khalij Times leads reporting that thousands of Iranians and Iraqi fighters have been deployed in Syria in past weeks to bolster the defenses of Damascus and its surrounding. The paper also reports that Bahraini authorities say they have busted a 14-member terrorist group accused of having carried out bomb attacks on police and civilians. The Egypt Independent leads reporting that a number of human rights organizations have escalated their warnings against the reported surge in forced disappearances of young activists, which they blame on security agents. The United States will maintain its $1.3 billion military aid and security assistance to Egypt until the end of 2017, provided that the government meets a set of conditions. Now let's have a look at the top Middle East headlines from papers here in London. The Telegraph leads reporting that Barack Obama has warned that America's veto in support of Israel at the United Nations is increasingly difficult because of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's wavering stance on a Palestinian state. Mr. Obama said the lack of progress in peace efforts and Mr. Netanyahu's apparent about-turn on support for a two-state solution before and after the recent Israeli elections mean that Israel is in danger of losing credibility. The Independent leads reporting that water has become the latest weapon in ISIS' arsenal after ISIS fighters redirected the flow of the Euphrates River to give them better access to government fighters on the southern bank. The Euphrates has acted as a geographical barrier between ISIS fighters who have seized the river's north bank and pro-government forces who are attempting to move closer to Ramadi from the other side. In The Guardian, a report that millions of Iraqis could be left without food, water, medicine and shelter over the next 6 months unless the international community urgently comes up with nearly $500 million of humanitarian aid. Elise Grand, the UN's humanitarian coordinator for Iraq, said failure to find the money to help those caught up in the war between Islamic State and the Iraqi government would have catastrophic consequences that could leave 10 million people in need of life-saving support by the end of the year. Now let's have a look at the top international papers. From Germany, the Deutsche Welle leads reporting that an Egyptian human rights activist was barred from leaving for Germany the same day his country's President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi was due to arrive in Berlin for talks with Chancellor Angela Merkel. Mohammed Lutfi, executive director of the non-profit organization Egyptian Commission for Rights and Freedoms, said he had his passport taken away from a security officer who told him, "You're not going to travel, you're going back home." And the International New York Times reports that in an unusual daytime attack near Egypt's most visible tourist attraction, gunmen shot and killed 2 police officers on Wednesday, a few hundred yards from the pyramids of Giza. The gunmen on a motorcycle fired at the officers at a security checkpoint on the road leading to the pyramids. That was it for today's newspapers. For more updates, please visit levant.tv. Thanks for watching Levant TV Press Review, and bye for now.